Hello, hello.
Hello again.
Hello again. Okay, wait. So I am turning on the subtitles. Hey. Hello and welcome back, everybody. We'll wait for a few minutes before we start to give people a chance to arrive. How's everyone's day going so far?
Mine is good.
Woohoo! Hello.
How are you?
Good, good.
How's your day going?
I would say pretty good as well.
Good.
Yeah. I am a little bit I feel the trees that fell.
Oh, there's lots of trees that fell.
Yes. We had a big storm pass through our area here yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah, really, it took all but 10 minutes. And really, in my street, there are several trees down, and in my yard, two of them.
oh no. Lucky they didn't hit the house, huh?
Yes, luckily, no person, house, or car got hit as I could tell. But yeah, it was pretty wild.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I know Caitlin got some amazing shots of the storm as it was rolling over the rap movie night.
Was it well attended? I hope so.
Yeah.
We had a really good crowd between what we sold and then I think the movie just being super popular. So the drive-in sells like, the overflow tickets.
Mm-hmm.
We were on the big screen this year instead of the smaller screen in the back of the the
Oh,
drive-in.
that's fun. Oh, good.
Yeah. And it was a little creepy for sure at the start of the movie. Well, before the movie started, honestly. I think it hit around like 8 or 8:15-ish or between that time frame where
Mm.
it was like a little scary a bit of the storm. and then and then it drizzled for a little while, but the majority of the movie it was completely like clear and beautiful and great. So I'm glad it got it out of its system early on and not like mid-movie, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, good.
Yeah, it was a really good night. So hey,
Yeah, I'm glad for you.
thank you.
So glad. And I see that
Sorry, I
Sarah's
look like
also
I was out till midnight, so that's why I don't have my camera on.
all good. We're glad you're here. And I see that Sarah's having a wonderful day, and Olivia is glad that the film went well. And yeah. So welcome back, everyone. I'm just gonna wait another minute because we do have one special guest who I'd love to make sure she's here or on, who's going to talk to us about her experience as a master community builder. And but we can jump in and then she can join us too. There she is. Hi, Nikki.
Hi.
So glad you're here and everybody else as well. Yeah, so we were just giving a few minutes before we jump into the content for today. And I think we can do that now, and then we'll come on. So welcome back, everybody. A special welcome to Nikki. I'm so excited to hear a little bit about your story later. Before we do that, I am just going to repeat a few things that we say at the beginning of this webinar series, just for the sake of everyone who might not have joined a previous episode. This is episode 3 of season 4 of the Growing Resilience webinar series. And you can find all of our recordings on YouTube. These, I will send those in email, the link as well. This is on our YouTube channel, CC Orange, and there's a playlist with this particular season. So just so you know. So we're going to jump in for today. The topic for today is Change Starts With You, and we're gonna hear it from a community builder, a newly minted community builder, newly minted in terms of the certificate that we were able to award. But of course, you know, Nikki has plenty experience beforehand, so yeah, but we will get to that. So here's an overview of all of the topics that we're going to address for the remainder of this calendar year. Today, as I said, it's Change Starts With You. The previous recordings on our YouTube channel can be found with these topics. And then next month, we're going to talk about regenerative well-being and what that looks like with some somatic practice input. And yeah, and the following topics you can see. So I'm very excited. If any of you has a topic they would like to suggest, or you have an idea of something you want to talk about, you are also welcome to share that, because we'd really love to build this out to be really like a community sharing platform for the coming year, or the season 5. So a bit about CCE. Here you see an overview of all of the programs that Cornell Cooperative Extension offers. Everything can be found on our website. Of course, there's a lot of different topics. I always say, if you want to know anything, contact CCE. If we don't have the answer, we will direct you to the resource. Here's also a QR code that can bring you to the site with all of the projects and programs that are being offered. A special announcement about the county fair, which will take place the last weekend in July. And that is going to be a fun event with lots of 4-H activities, animals, horse show. There's a market sprouts for little kids and older kids, also learning about growing food, planting it, and of course harvesting and then consuming it. So there's a lot of wonderful activities. We always have many opportunities that you can get involved, either as a volunteer, a program participant, of course, and also you know, positions that open from time to time. So come visit and check us out. So before we jump into today, let us start with a brief resilience pause. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through a body scan that I will walk us all through. So, you know, let's begin by just kind of taking that skylight method perspective. In other words, look down on yourself first, from outside of your body, so to speak, from above, as if you're looking through, and just notice what you're experiencing in your body and your mind and emotions. And then I'll walk us into our body through a body scan. So just take a peek at what's going on inside your body from outside your body. And then drop into yourself and You can close your eyes or just relax your gaze, just to slow down all of the input that comes in. Then bring your attention into your feet. And notice how your soles of your feet may be touching the ground, or how your toes feel. And then move up through your heels into your lower legs. And just notice if there's any kind of sensations that you can feel or notice. And then through your knees into your thighs. Into your buttocks and rump. Just notice what sensations you may be able to identify. Your upper body, your shoulders, your chest. Then into your arms, upper arms through your elbows, into your lower arms, into your hands. Head. Notice any sensations that you're feeling there. Brain that is so full of energy and always active. And then notice the skin all around your body. Skin that holds us in. Just notice the sensations that you can feel on your skin, whether it's your clothes or the air, anything else. And then bring your attention back to your feet and just how you're grounded or connected to the ground. How the ground holds you up. And come back. Thank you so much. Any thoughts that you may want to share, or something that stands out from? Okay.
Just wanted to say thank you for this. I feel like it's a really nice way to start a conversation.
Yeah, thank you. So many ways to do that, and I appreciate you all coming along. Okay, wonderful. I see in the comments also, thank you. Yes, and keep using the comments if you have anything you want to share. All right. So just to give us a reminder that in this series of why climate, public health, and community resilience, we're really focusing on this aspect that community is medicine. We mentioned in each one of the previous episodes that really throughout human history, there has been a lot of adversity, of course, and changes in our environment, in our social dynamics, and we've been able to band together and respond creatively and adapt and solve complex problems. And we can do this. We can do this again if we're working at this community level that we're talking about. So I want to talk briefly about kind of, continue this conversation on the impacts of trauma and to make a point as to why it is important that we are having these kinds of conversation. So trauma impacts our nervous system inside and out. So we can say that's inside our bodies as well as in our environments. And so there's something that's called biomimicry. And biomimicry is really looking at how nature puts certain mechanisms into place in order to, for example, heal itself or to accomplish certain tasks. It's a wonderful topic. If you're interested, go and Google it and find in very inspirational projects that are built on biomimicry. But we can also see in these concepts of how nature heals itself, for example, after there might have been an environmental disaster that leaves a lot of soil open, so to speak. We can notice that there's immediately some grass or some kind of a weed or something that grows over the soil to protect it from being open and being further eroded, and basically start a healing mechanism. And so we can do the same, notice the same thing in our bodies. When we have a small cut, there is a fine layer of skin that immediately, tries to cover the cut. And then slowly we build more of that skin on top of that. And so there really is a role that this healing takes place, or how healing takes place in our personal ecosystems and the systems around us. And we can learn from that and adopt some of this. I want to just do a brief kind of an exercise to highlight the impact of certain stressors on our lives. So for example, if you were to add up the number of specific transitions that you may have experienced, those are small or large changes that you or a close family member may have experienced in the last 3 months. So let's make it really real in terms of our real life experience and put that number in the chat. So, a transition could, for example, be school year ending. And now, you have to transition the whole family rhythm. But think about other possible transitions. Maybe a car broke down and you had to, figure out how you're going to address or, get the car repaired or replace it, or how you're getting around. So think about in the last 3 months, just how many transitions or small changes you might have experienced in your life or in your family, and put that number in the chat. Okay, so I see 4, 3, 3, 7, 4, 7. Yeah, that's a lot of transitions. Okay, and so now think about, were some of these transitions stressful? And if so, how did you or your family cope with them? And you can just kind of take that note for yourself at the moment. And so then, now think about how many transitions occurred in the past 3 months in our communities. Like that were not part of your personal, immediate family, but in something like that. And then, think about how did different residents in your community cope with these? Yeah, endless transitions within the community. And how are people coping? Yeah. How to come by for that. It adds up, right? Okay, and so here's another task basically. So now think about one of the transitions that you experienced and count the number of tasks that you had to perform in order to basically respond to that particular transition. So, add those up to the responsibility and how, these may have altered something that you may had to do and plans you had to change, and then put that number in the chat. Yeah, I see. So as you're adding up the tasks and you're putting that in the chat, I'm also going to ask, how did the additional or altered tasks affect you and your family? And how did you or your family cope with that? Yeah, so I see a number 7, task steps that were involved to address that. Yep, and then think about how that altered it. And so now you can think about, multiply the number of steps that it required to do this task by the number of the life changes or the, shifts, the transitions that you had to do. So if the number is 7, then 7 times 7, I think that was what I remember. 13 times, 4, or 6 times, 5, however many those were. So you can see it really adds up and impacts how we're going to do this. And so now think about, or imagine the number of transitions and tasks required as the frequency of climate-related events increases the stressors that results, the type of coping mechanisms that might be used. So perfect example, last night, there's 2 trees down in my yard. There's multiple trees down in my street. All of these need to be picked up. I have to figure out how I'm going to cut these, how I'm going to put it away. And so that is a climate-related event, the storm that took place. Think about the heat wave that we just experienced and how that impacts these transitions and adds on to what we're experiencing. Same thing with the flooding that occurred, right? And so this is really why climate events, public health, and regenerative well-being is so important, right? And why we think about that in the context of mental wellness, mental health, and psychosocial problems. Because what oftentimes appears as mental health or psychosocial problems are oftentimes coping mechanisms or self-protective survival reactions that we may have. And so when trauma and stress are continuing to overwhelm the mind, often cannot distinguish what is real or what is not, and it remains in this state of hypervigilance. If I ask you, for example, now to imagine you're putting a slice of lemon on your tongue, just imagine putting that slice of lemon there. What happens? Are you noticing any changes or anything, basically? Face puckers, yes. Exactly, yeah. I feel like, mouth waters, absolutely. So, and this is our imagination. Okay, I take it that none of you actually put a slice of lemon on your tongue, but now it's there. So even the imagination elicits a physical response. So the same thing is when we think about certain events that may have caused a traumatic experience, we might set the same mechanisms that are responding or continuing to respond in our bodies, a physical response that continues. So, and this really can cause people to fail to consider healthy options, and opting for coping methods that end up harming themselves. I've certainly done this myself. Other people or the environment might be harmed as well in the process, right? So this is why it's important to consider the intersection and how all of this connects and relates with each other. So we have to address the struggles that our communities are experiencing, and we need to help residents heal their trauma. Obviously, this sounds like a big task, and yes, I don't want to minimize it, but I also don't want to say it's a task that cannot be done. And so by building community capacity, we can help to put mechanisms in place that facilitate these healing processes, as we talk about in, biomimicry. We know that social connections is one of the biggest protective factors and also a way that heals, like we say, community heals. So how can we build those mechanisms into the networks and in the infrastructure of our communities? And so this is where we focus on mental wellness and transformative resilience. So the way we start is by changing with ourselves, right? Change starts with you. And so the way we start is we want to break that triangle of the fight, flight, and freeze mechanism. And we can do that through care for ourselves and for others, and by creating love-based environments. I'll talk about that in a moment and what that looks like. So then we can have, when we experience a way that we can feel safe and in a way that we can experience love, whether it's self-love or love to our community and those around us, that then allows us to shift our thoughts into a way that we can begin to vision or envision what a community life future can look like, where that is possible. So there's basically 5 domains of affirmation that we want to support in order for people to experience a sense of feeling loved. So that means self-worth and acceptance. When people have an experience of self-worth and acceptance, they can experience feelings that allow their nervous systems, to the parasympathetic nervous system in particular, to get into a stage of rest and digest. When people feel safety and security, that same sensation can be triggered. When people feel a sense of belonging and connection, that sense can be strengthened. When people feel strength and capable, that is also a positivity. And so then the positive outlook and assurance is another affirmation, basically, that allows people to look at this. So the community characteristics that we want to support is basically being supportive, understanding, respectful, and inclusive. And if we can create these kinds of environments, then people can experience that sense that allows them or their nervous systems to regulate themselves. And so these are areas we want to delve in some more in the coming series. But what I want to talk about first, I want to just share with you briefly what the Master Community Builder program is. And then Nikki is going to share a little bit about her experience. So the Master Community Builder is a builder program, just is graduating its first cohort. It's built on the concept of other master volunteer programs like the Master Gardener program or the Master Food Preserver programs. Other states have other programs like Master Wellness volunteer programs. It's structured on a framework that acknowledges the impact of trauma and injustice on our health and well-being, and it is designed to nurture individual and community resilience. So basically, that is what the Master Community Builder program is, and that is what Nikki just completed. And I'm so grateful for her to be here with us today to share a little bit about her experience. So welcome, Nikki. Thank you for making this time, and I am delighted to hear a little bit about Tell us where you're from and how you, came about the program, maybe.
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Are you hearing an echo or am I fine? Okay.
You're fine.
Carmela, are you hearing an echo? Oh, okay. Give me 1 second. Let me just. How about now? Am I good now? Okay, awesome. So I currently reside in Poughkeepsie, New York, and I actually came across, just to give you just a brief background of what I do and my experiences. So I have done a lot of like community building. I want to say for more than 10 years now. I used to work for Scenic Hudson as their community organizer and special projects coordinator, where basically I was just facilitating, I want to say, like being the liaison between the community and our work that we were doing at the present time. And prior to that, I did some community building and also in the Kingdom of Eswatini, which is in the sub-Saharan region of Africa. And I volunteer in Haiti and all over the East Coast per se. And so connections to me has been always like key. And I came across the Master Community Building Program because I initially thought, again, it was something that I was used to, going out, talking to communities, getting to know what their concerns were, what their issues were. Lo and behold, this whole program shifted my whole perspective on what community building, on what trauma, on what trauma is. Um, so this program is about really building yourself to impact the communities around you. And it's focusing on your total wellness capacity. There are certain things that we spoke about, like the adverse childhood theory, how like who we are right now is just a result of how we were treated when we were in childhood. And so to learn that some of the things that we experience today is like, it could be, oh, we didn't have someone to nurture us in a certain capacity. So there's cultural humility that we learn, our biases that exist within ourselves. Like when we say we want an inclusive, we say we want to be inclusive, right? What does that really mean? Are we just saying it because it's the thing to do? Or do we really want to connect with individuals that are different than our own upbringing and what we believe in now? And the regenerative well-being is also key. So these are, again, this program has just been super beneficial in shifting my perspective and knowing how important it is for us to connect with one another. Another thing is that we all have in common on this call. I probably only know one person, Yulika, but I tell you this, the one thing that we have in common is trauma. We all so we all have some type of trauma that we have experienced in life. And it is about how we are going to overcome this together. And the only way we can overcome it is really shining the light within us. And so that's what brought me to the program. So, and how currently what I do is I am a New York State licensed hiking guide, and I have my own business as One Flight. And basically, it's a guided hiking business where I help busy moms and professionals find balance and thrive through restorative practices in being outdoors and the transformative experience that nature has to offer to us. And when Yulika was talking about biomimicry, about how basically nature heals us, nature has everything that we need. Even when we are outside, if you go to an open space, you just immediately you can shift, your mindset shifts as to being present, right? And when you are present, that's the only way that you can really tap into who you are, see who you are, how you can impact and how you contribute to not only your personal life, but your professional life. So I really use nature as a tool for reflection, discovery, and growth. And so, how do I plan to integrate what I've learned for the program in my own practice? And again, the three things that are crucial to me to continue to practice is being outside in nature, journaling my experiences and capturing how am I feeling it, processing it, and how, really trying to find balance. Like in our society today, we are so consumed with being busy, what productivity looks like. Um, if you notice, like sometimes you go out with your friends or your family, everybody is on their phones. There's a need to check something because we have a fear of missing out on things. But I promise you, you're not missing out on anything. If you stayed off of social media for literally a month, there's nothing that you're missing because you can go back to the archives. The internet stores everything. So it's a matter of slowing down. And that is something. I'm a mom of three. And my children, my youngest one is 3, and he has some challenges. Um, and it consumes me sometimes. But what helps me out is the fact to stay in that moment, to know that these moments are fleeting constantly. And we don't want to get to a point in life where we look back and say, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, right? So connecting with individuals, connecting to and asking questions and just being curious. If we say that we want to be inclusive, we say that we want to have compassion, if we want to really do the work, we really need to look within ourselves. So that's it. In a nutshell, it was a lot, but that's what I got out of the program. And if you haven't taken it, and I recommend, like, yes, it's a Saturday, one Saturday a month, and the second Tuesday of each month. But the people that you meet, the stories that you hear people opening up and being vulnerable. And we've been conditioned to believe that we have to be strong, we have to be vulnerable. We can't be vulnerable. We just have to walk with a tough skin. You'd be so surprised how many stories are similar to your own. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I saw you got some love and claps, and I think, what I hear you say is really that this journey through yourself kind of starts with acknowledging and naming potentially some of the trauma and the experiences we've had that have impacted our ability to truly connect with one another, and that also allow us to then see, how we can support well-being in others and ourselves, using nature as a way to remind ourselves of, grounding ourselves, being present, seeing where we are, and fostering the social connections that can help us really have the perspective to be present in difficult situations like parenting and so forth. And yeah, I thank you so much. And so, you mentioned too, I mean, you have you've done so many things in your life that are so impressive. I know, for a few more things that you had shared around, which I think are, really where people are like, wow, you really have experienced all of this. So the fact that this is kind of this journey from inside out, and prepares you to be, as you say, in your community and kind of become that, maybe a pillar or something. I wonder if anyone here has a question for you. I know you have to leave in a few minutes, but perhaps we can open the floor if there's someone who may want to, ask you something, or yeah.
And thank you, Nikki. It's really great to hear about your work. I also love the healing powers of being outside and really appreciate all that. I wanted to ask, since you mentioned journaling, what are a couple of your favorite journaling prompts to give people for reflecting?
One of my favorite journal prompts is like, if you could actually be consistent, focus on what really matters most by being consistent, and you had no barriers whatsoever, what would that be? And you'd be surprised, like people would say, like, okay, like you have to dissect that question. Like you would say, okay, well, what it forces you to think about, what should you be focusing on, right? Like, are you going to focus on, like, say you're at a job and you're not fulfilled with the job, right? But what is it that really fulfills you? Are you putting into practice daily what you can do to be fulfilled? So that question is like an open-ended question as to just being like shifting your perspective to see how you can be consistent in honoring what matters most to you. And of course that opens up a realm of so many different other things. But that is like one of my favorite prompts to use.
Great question.
Thank you, Eva.
Any other questions for Nikki?
And I'm also putting my email in the chat if you have any additional questions or if you want to know more about the program in detail, more about what I do in detail. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions.
Beautiful. And I put your website in the chat as well.
Yes.
So
thank you.
go check it out. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nikki.
You're
I really
welcome.
appreciate it, and yeah, wonderful. Very
Awesome.
inspiring.
Thank you. So thank you guys so much as well. I'm sorry that I have to leave you guys, but I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you on Saturday.
Woohoo!
All
Yes.
right. You guys take it easy.
Great.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Yep.
Great. So we're gonna go back briefly to our PowerPoint. So this is great. I love that we can hear, and hopefully we'll hear from more people throughout this series. So now I want to invite you into a small group discussion. So here are some questions that I prepared for us that I'd love for you to consider. So, and that is really, how can you engage residents in learning information and skills that support their healing process? And so that could be really, we're not putting any limits or boundaries on this. You can discuss what you think in this context. What information or skills support the healing process of people in your community. And so there are possible approaches just to kind of give you a jump start to think about this. One is help residents understand the way trauma impacts or activates and transmits in the community, just like Nikki just shared, how that was a big factor for her. Could you hold a conference where speakers describe a vision of how a community can begin to prevent and heal trauma and engage people in specific exercises, or engage residents in asset mapping, right? So these are just some approaches. And I want to invite you now in a small group, and what I'm going to do, oopsie, sorry, I just have to stop the share, to discuss this. And I think I'm gonna make a pair and then a group of 3 in a breakout group. And I will say we have about 7 minutes to discuss this, and then I'm gonna call you back. So at 12:50, I'm gonna call you all back, and all you have to do right now is click join and discuss this question. Comments. So yeah, welcome back. I am curious to hear if you have any thoughts that stand out from you, or ideas, or what you talked about that from your discussion that stand out that you might want to share with everyone here.
we could talk. Yulika was also in our chat because we were having some difficulty with our breakout room, so we just chatted in the main room. But Olivia was talking about really beginning some programs with letting people know the assets and resources that they have nutritionally, like making different budgets and getting access to food to kind of have that preventative measure in reducing trauma and in having nutrition just to basically fuel your life and your body. And we also discussed, I just brought up how I really appreciated Nikki's presentation, and having worked in outdoor education for a long time, appreciating that aspect of connection to nature and reflection, and now working with school gardens, thinking about bringing reflective activities into the garden to also set kids up to have that kind of health and resilience.
Beautiful. That's very exciting. Yeah, and the connection to nature can also really help restore the, I guess, our nervous systems in a way, especially in light of some of the climate-related events that may make us afraid, or, that can cause some anxiety, especially among young people. Yeah, anything else that stands out from the other discussion group?
I appreciated that Nikki, shared the fact that, we all have trauma in common. Just reminding us of that. And then we talked about different ways that we would, try to bring healing into our programming, if we haven't already. So we talked about, self-care too, and how that's valuable.
Yeah.
And just being
Beautiful.
aware that people have trauma, and, someone working with communities, and, someone is off on a particular day, and understanding that it could be something that they're triggered them, or, and we talked about that as well. And listening, just being there to listen.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, thank you all so much for engaging in these conversations, and for, thinking about what might be possible to do in your communities, and how you might be able to apply what, we talked about. So, yeah, kind of to, round things off for today, the key messages here is always communities medicine. Another one for today is really a change starts with you, including myself, me too. I'm talking to you too. And that by working at a level of that kind of community support, we can do this together. And there is a QR code that you can scan. We'd love to have your feedback and consider this. And for those watching the recording, they can also activate this QR code and respond to how they experience this. And I do see that, Ava, you have your hand raised, and yeah, feel free to.
Yeah, I just had a question regarding trauma, and if there's any kind of parameters or definition you could provide for it, because I know there's more explicit trauma like abuse, but then what else is considered trauma, like types of transitions, or yeah, I'm just wondering for a more expansive definition, considering everyone has trauma in varying forms, but some people might have more severe trauma or different forms of trauma. So I'm just wondering if someone's trying to categorize, like, this thing happened to me, is this traumatic, or was it just a regular event? Like, what classifies it as a trauma?
That's a great question. So I just want to make everyone aware that there is a bunch of recordings that are really informative, I think, on this topic, where we go into depth in some of the topics. So on our YouTube channel, you can see those recordings, but also, for here, so not every stressful event is trauma or causes trauma. We have, this definition between, so to speak, toxic stress, and then there's moderate stress, and then there is, everyday stressors that sometimes can even have beneficial effects. Sometimes we need those in order to motivate us or to get the kind of adrenaline flowing in our bodies that make us hyper aware or alert or allow us to really focus and concentrate. When we have trauma that is, or stress that's considered toxic, that basically means that an event or something in our environment or how we experience something might have taken place. That could be a one-time event like a car accident, or a form of abuse, as you mentioned, but then there's also events that could be ongoing, or experiences that build up and that just become, relived experiences. So all of the way our body responds to any one of these experiences, whether it's an event, an experience, or something that, takes place in our environment, is pretty much the same, because it's a biological response that takes place and that adds up to, this fight, flight, or freeze mechanism in our brain that then determines how easily that may get triggered in the future from experiences that are not necessarily related to that trauma. And so how we basically deal with that is how we can support a healing process, how we are able to overcome this shock to our system that took place, whether it's a one-time or an ongoing experience. Because what happens when, and this is, so to speak, the impact of trauma or a traumatic experience, is that our body may respond to small signals in our everyday lives post this event with the same response, and that can overload our system. And so with the everyday stressors, etc., we may be experiencing what is called an allostatic overload. So we end up, having our senses that, the regular stress from going to work and trying to make ends meet, or responding to our children bickering, can easily stress our bodies in the same way, which puts it in overload, which puts a stress on our organs, etc. And so therefore we become more vulnerable to disease or, negative and adverse physical responses. So that's why when we want to, or we can look to nature in a way for this healing mechanisms to take place in our bodies. That's why we want to heal. We want to support, in a way, our nervous systems to be able to regulate them itself, so that we can create better blood flow, better, oxygen flow, and all of that supplies our bodies. So going back, this is kind of a long way to say, not all stressful events are traumatic. Some stressful events can even have a beneficial effect, in that it gets us to do a difficult task, to accomplish something. And there is something like post-traumatic growth. We can learn from that, but it really depends on the ecosystem around us that needs to be strong enough in order to have the responses that we can be resilient, which means that we can bounce back. And so that's kind of the long way of explaining that. And then again, I encourage everyone to, check out those recordings. There's definitely some. You can skip forward and, look at what makes sense. I hope that answered your question. Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you all again next month. I hope you have a wonderful first month of summer, and I will see you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.